The band took a small 4-day vacation before coming back on October 3rd for the final studio date to record the rest of the material. That's 1 day to get 8 songs on tape. Quite a risky move, but that's how they rolled. It was all or nothing. The Knights played Croydon Hall on September 29th, while the new Boeing 747 was unveiled to the public on the 30th. October 1st began with Donovan live in Arizona, followed by tragic, devastating news from Mexico on October 2nd with the Tlatelolco massacre, just days before the country was to host the 1968 Summer Olympics. Also on this day, French artist and icon Marcel Duchamp passed away at the age of 81. You can spot him on the insert for Physical Graffiti. So in between Olympic studio sessions, Peter Grant kept himself busy sorting last-minute details for the band's first UK tour. 10 concerts were booked all through December, including the prestigious Marquee on October 16th. But despite Grant's efforts, he was still dealing with a lack of interest from promoters and British media, adding wood into the New Yardbirds' fire of proving everyone wrong. All they could do was finish their album and find a good record deal. Written by Jones, Page and Plant, this ballad provided much balance to the album. Lyrical content on the dangers of relationships and codependency was similar to one of Robert Plant's 1967 CBS singles, Laughing, Crying, Laughing. Your Time Is Gonna Come has 2 possible sources of inspiration. First one is Procol Harum's approach to ballads, including Gary Brooker's signature keyboard work and Robin Trower's thunder guitar. The fact Page considered drummer B.J. Wilson for the New Yardbirds reinforces this theory. Second source of inspiration is Hey Joe. The widely covered tune, both Tim Rose and Jimi Hendrix's versions, led to an adaptation of that famous riff you can hear on Your Time Is Gonna Come. Oh yeah, they were probably inspired by this one. Studio notes show several tracks reserved for Jumble Jones's tasteful organ chops, including his breathtaking introduction. There's plenty of room for organ bass and organ top, which explains its massive sound on record.
This is all I gotta say to you, woman.
One of the earliest Led Zeppelin covers was recorded for a 1969 release by British singer Sandy Shaw. The album was reviewing the situation with Your Time Is Gonna Come on side 2, credited to Page and Jones. This version includes Ian Wallace on drums, who besides recording King Crimson's Islands, was a member of John Anderson's pre-Yes band, The Warriors, in the early 60s. Your Time Is Gonna Come was never played by Led Zeppelin outside of 2 brief medley spots in Tokyo 1971 and San Diego 1973. Because they had Thank You on their setlist, with Jones working out an organ introduction, Your Time Is Gonna Come never stood a chance past 1969. It was a different story in post-Led Zeppelin chapters. Robert Plant came back to the song on 6 occasions in 1993. Jimmy Page revived it for his Black Crowes collaboration, and Jumble Jones surprised the rock and roll world with a 2024 organ version. The song's legacy remains the same, and it inspired classic rock staples in the ways of Sweet Home Alabama. Although Page and Jones recorded a song with the same name for PJ Proby's 3-Week Hero album, this has no relation to it. A quick rock and roll number captures Bonham taking the lead with a frantic drum groove. Quite a playful piece with fast guitar overdubs ran through a Leslie speaker. Studio tracks show 4 channels for guitars, bass and drums, but nothing for vocals, which leads to the online theory of Robert's actual recording date for this. Was it 69? Maybe. And it's also quite strange the drum sound is closer to the stuff we hear on Led Zeppelin 2 than their debut. Song title and lyrics were inspired by Sonny Boy Williamson's Sugar Mama. Howlin' Wolf's version can be found on some live Whole Love medleys of 1971. Now traces of the main studio guitar crunch for Sugar Mama can be heard on another Page recorded song, the Yardbirds' 1967 track Little Games. A 12-bar blues-style tune with that famous Hendrix chord sound that just couldn't compete with the rest of the material recorded at Olympic Studios. Sugar Mama was stored in the archives for 47 years before being officially released on Coda's 2015 Deluxe Edition. The best version of the song was captured the second time around, with Robert Plant finding the perfect place between bravado and restraint. It was one of the most difficult tracks to capture on tape, thus why the September 27th session was pivotal in understanding how the song worked. A controlled environment like Olympic Studios was very different from the electric versions they played on their Scandinavian tour. One of the finest light and shade achievements in Led Zeppelin's discography lives on forever. Baby, I'm gonna leave you.
Baby, 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 I'm gonna leave you. You made me happy every single day.
With a working title of A Man I Know, Good Times Bad Times was destined to be the album's opener, thanks to its potent power chords and mesmerizing drum parts, including right foot triplets. The main guitar riff is quite tricky and was written by John Paul Jones. You can tell it's a Jones riff based on the note selection. It's a style that was later present in another Jones composition, Black Dog. The thing that makes Good Times Bad Times unique is how the D5 chord shape is followed by a quick D major scale motif and a chromatic ascension of C sharp, D, and E flat back into the E5 power chord for continuity. The chorus features a 3-chord style found on songs like 1964's Gloria, with backing vocal heaven work.
Good times, bad times, you know I've had my share. When my woman left home to work, brown-eyed man, but I still don't seem to care.
Some sources state you can hear John Bonham's vocal contributions next to Robert. The song shifts into an F-sharp call and response motif that was later reworked for Over the Hills and Far Away. Jimmy's lead guitar work throughout the track is nothing short of incendiary, elevating its intention to the highest possible places of youth and rebellion. Now we can trace Good Times Bad Times' introduction back to John Bonham's stint with Tim Rose in late June 1968. This audio fragment is self-explanatory. Now Jimmy ran his Telecaster guitar solo through a Leslie speaker for its distinct sound. Robert Plant double-tracked the lyrics that deal with the coming of age for a young man making his way in the world. In the same way of Your Time Is Gonna Come, Plant describes falling in love only to be left by his woman, adding continuity to his theme fixation on heartbreaks and romantic disappointments. We can speculate on the song's title being inspired by Good Times, Bad Times, an October 1964 Mick Jagger and Keith Richards number off the Stones' 12x5 album.
There's been good times, there's been bad times.
Strangely enough, Good Times, Bad Times was never performed in its entirety outside of the intro for several shows in late 1969. One was officially released via Paris Olympia show on the bonus disc for the 2014 deluxe edition of Led Zeppelin. Then it was down to brief vocal references on Communication Breakdown funk medleys on and off until 1971. One possible reason Good Times, Bad Times didn't make the cut on stage in full was the associated stress levels that came with performing such a deceptive number. Record books were changed forever with its inclusion as the opening track for Led Zeppelin's 2007 reunion. Modern technology certainly helped this one sound massive at the O2 Arena. You can watch my 3-part documentary on this event here on the channel. Notable Good Times, Bad Times covers include Nuclear Assault's incredibly tight version on their 1988 Survive record. Godsmack tried to do the same thing in 2007 for their 10 Years of Godsmack compilation. My favorite cover version though remains the 1997 take by Zakk Wylde on guitar and vocals, James Kodak on drums, and Jeff Pilson on bass. It's a badass take on this Zeppelin classic, or should I say it's a wild take. Working title Too Good was the temporary name for Communication Breakdown. Lyrics were loosely based on Eddie Cochran's Nervous Breakdown from 1958. Roberts' lyrics deal with opposite sex attraction rooted in pathological behaviors where rejection fuels obsession. Studio tracks show the existence of an organ track that it's not so obvious at first, but once you hear it, you understand how important it was to the song. The origin of the music for Communication Breakdown is fascinating. We can trace the fast riff concept back to April 1968 in a Yardbird session. Jimmy's guitar solo and opening riff have Yardbird's roots as well, this time from Train Kept a Rollin'. Communication Breakdowns follows the 3-chord response of 1964's Gloria, this time E, D, and A. These chords can also be found on the Yardbirds' Smokestack Lightning. These same chord structures can be found on Led Zeppelin's In the Evening off their In Through the Outdoor album. A short but effective number, Communication Breakdown sits on Led Zeppelin's top 10 live songs ever at 225 times, with some 1969 shows using Good Times, Bad Times as intro. A funk jam section was added in the middle to stretch the tune beyond its studio album possibilities. Communication Breakdown was performed on every Zeppelin concert year, all the way up to 1980. You can find not one but 5 versions on the complete BBC sessions and the Paris Olympia bonus disc. Smokestack Lightning was recorded in 1956 by Howlin' Wolf. Less than 10 years after, it was one of the most popular live songs by the Yardbirds, performed by every lineup and guitarist including Chris Rea, Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck, and Jimmy Page. The main riff for How Many More Times was extracted from the Yardbirds material, circa 1967 and 1968, as the riff changed towards a different sequence that was probably inspired by Ricky Nelson's Summertime. A quick chord response can be found on Hendrix's Bold as Love from 1967. Jimmy's Dragon Telecaster guitar was plugged in direct into the mixing desk for overdrive, which was later sent to the amp and Leslie speaker accordingly. Middle section for How Many More Times was inspired by both the Yardbirds and Beck's Bolero, which saw its album release on Jeff Beck's Truth, July 1968. Although Beck came up with the melody, he acknowledged Page coming up with the song's driving rhythm guitar motif. Because Jimmy was credited as songwriter, nothing could stop him from reworking this for his own band. If Jeff Beck didn't fight for a songwriter credit back in 1966 when they recorded this song, that's a different conversation. Jimmy got songwriting royalties every time Jeff performed Beck's Bolero on stage. Now, where Page took this theme for Zeppelin 1 is nothing short of an achievement in sound recording, with guitar orchestration taken to new dimensions. The Haunter section was inspired by Albert King's 1967 song, with Robert referencing the opening part of the lyrics. The instrumental behind it was original and evolved from the Yardbirds' live jamming, including the Hendrix chord. Robert's scream before coming back into the song was a statement of vigor, the arrival of the future kings of the 70s. Their time was going to come. Studio notes show one channel for organ bass, which may explain the augmented low end on some sections. Now for a kicker. Early Atlantic Records promo materials have personnel credits, including Robert Plant on occasional bass. Could it be possible Robert played organ bass on How Many More Times? I mean, it's just hitting a couple of notes, and maybe he assisted Jones while he played his Fender jazz instrument. This occasional bass thing triggered my OCD thought process. What is occasional bass? I have occasional nightmares of this. I need to know. How Many More Times was the piece de resistance and tour de force element for 1969. Robert Plant would introduce the band at the beginning, and it was the home for long jams and blues medleys. It was taken off the set once Whole Lotta Love came in, and it came back as a standalone number until a single show in 1973, Southampton, and a strange but brief return for several dates in January 1975 of all tours, with Robert battling freezing weather and having much difficulty reaching the high notes. Official releases include BBC Sessions Disc 1 and the Paris Olympia bonus disc. I personally recommend the Page and Plant versions of 1998, which brought much excitement to their setlists that year. Jimmy's playing here is exquisite. Okay, first things first. American songwriter Jake Holmes came up with the song for his June 1967 release, The Above Ground Sound. The short 3-minute track had much rock and roll potential from the start, but hold on. I think Holmes himself was inspired by a 1966 tune, Willie Bobo's Right Neck Bones, from his Uno Dos Tres album, which employs a descending chromatic motif that works wonders, with the vocals somewhat eerie feeling. You can actually sing Dazed and Confused over it.
Been dazed and confused for so long, it's not true. Wanted a woman, never bargained for you.
So back to Jake Holmes. He shared an August 25th, 1967 date with the Youngbloods and the Yardbirds at the Village Theater, New York City. Holmes said this is where Jimmy Page heard Dazed and Confused for the first time. The Yardbirds began to play this song in 1968 with one of the earliest performances, their March 9th French TV appearance. Now here's where it gets interesting. Dazed and Confused was done some 41 times throughout 1968, but no Yardbirds demo version was ever recorded. You wonder why such a popular live number was left off their studio plans. Didn't this lineup think it had great potential? They were sitting on a gold mine, but no action was taken. Yet, this was carte blanche for Page to take advantage of the new Yardbirds sound to lay down a definite take.
À la guitare, Jim Page, Chris Druja et le chanteur Keith Brown.
Jake Holmes' career in 1967 saw him as a regular performer at New York City's Bitter End Cafe, but you gotta see this Village Voice review on his album and style. First they praise his live act jazz rock combo and quote his album contains some intriguing melodic and rhythmic changes, but then they proceed to say he seems fated to end up as Pavement on the road to mediocrity as he lacks the spark of aggressive originality. Yikes. They said that when he played at the Bitter End Cafe, there was an amiable buzz. His fun songs were great, but when he got serious, it was way too tragic. The reason I bring this up is it seems Holmes' career was troubled from the start. To think he was on a European tour in 1970 next to Taste and didn't know Dazed and Confused became a huge hit is mind-blowing. So how different was the Yardbirds' Dazed and Confused version from the new Yardbirds? It was basically Jim McCarty, Keith Relf, and Chris Dreja's concert work on steroids. Bonham's drumming was heavier, Jones's bass was lethal, and Plant's singing was like electric flamenco, if such thing is possible.
Give me a clue as to where I am at. Feel like a mouse and you act like a cat.
Lots of people talking, few of them know. Soul of a woman was created below.
Four electric guitar channels were assigned on the mix, with Jimmy Page playing high octave parts for a 12-string guitar effect that accentuates the main riff's twin harmony and transitions. Now, it wasn't the first time Page used a violin bow, as you can hear it on the Yardbirds' Little Games track, Tinker Tailor Soldier Sailor. It would take me a couple of hours to discuss all the live versions from 1969 through 1975, but we can all agree their 1973 concert footage from The Song Remains the Same is one of the band's absolute concert highlights, ever. One of the recording studio mysteries of the Zeppelin world. Studio tracks show bass, guitar, and drums for this one without any further development nor information. While it's tempting to think this is I Can't Quit You Baby Take 1, That would be recorded on October 15th, so it leaves you guessing what kind of blues they played. On the next episode of The Making of Led Zeppelin, the New Yardbirds embark on their first UK tour, fighting to get British press and media names interested, which only confirmed their need to go to America before it was too late. Also, we'll take a look at the last 3 songs recorded at Olympic Studios London, while touring plans for England were already set in motion. Stay tuned for part 3 and don't forget to hit the like button. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.